You live in a world where men sleep in glass towers, worship numbers that aren't even real, and call that success. You pay rent to sit in little boxes and stare at glowing rectangles that tell you what to want, what to fear, and who to hate. I slept in a barrel and barked at kings. Guess which of us was freer? I am Diogenes of Sinope. They called me the Dog of Athens. I took it as a compliment. A dog knows its hunger and its enemies. A dog does not pretend. Men do. I was what you called a cynic, a man who thought most respectable values were frauds, and who lived so bluntly that respectable people crossed the street to avoid me. You've seen me before, in your excellent adventure. They hauled my ghost out of the grave, sat me in front of one of your magic windows, and asked what I thought of your tech oligarchs. I told you the truth, that your new gods are just rich boys who have replaced temples with platforms and priests with algorithms, and still expect you to kneel. You wanted more. You said, give us a long one from the dog. So here I am. Let's do this properly. In life, I owned almost nothing, a cloak, a staff, a bowl, until I saw a boy drink from his hands and realized I didn't need even that. I slept in a jar by the marketplace. When the Athenians said I lived like a dog, they meant I did not dress up my nature in silken lies. I ate when I was hungry, I spoke when I saw nonsense, I relieved myself where I pleased. I made my life an insult to polite society on purpose because polite society was the disease. You build whole identities out of things I would have called clutter. Clothes as costumes, titles as costumes, follower counts as costumes. You change your mask 10 times a day and call that being yourself. I threw away the mask and let my ugliness breathe. It was not pretty. It was honest. You remember the story of Alexander? The king of Macedon came looking for me, standing there in my rags, sunbathing like a lizard. The crowd parted. Diogenes, they whispered. The conqueror is here. Alexander stood over me and said, ask any favor. And I said, yes, stand out of my sun. Understand what that meant. The most powerful man in the world offered me everything, and the only thing he could truly take from me was the light. I had arranged my life so that I needed nothing from him. That is why I could speak to him as an equal. If you cannot tell your boss, your idol, your favorite rich man, you are blocking my sun, then you are not free. You are just a well-fed subject. You also know the story of the lamp. I walked around Athens at noon with a lantern, peering into people's faces. What are you doing? They asked. Looking for an honest man, I said. I did not find one. Not a banker, not a general, not a philosopher. Plenty of clever men, plenty of successful men. Very few who would lose face rather than tell a lie. You now carry more light in your pocket than any city in my time. You call it the internet. You think that because you can see everything, you know something. But information is not honesty. You drowned yourselves in facts and forgot that the real courage is admitting which ones condemn you. Let me clear something up. Today, when you call someone a cynic, you mean a man who thinks everything is corrupt and shrugs, a defeated soul who laughs at ideals and does nothing. That is not what I was. A cynic in my time was a man who rejected false values and lived his philosophy so plainly that everyone else felt embarrassed. We were not pessimists. We were extremists of honesty. We chose to look ridiculous rather than live a lie. People called us mad, rude, impossible to live with, and they were right. Philosophy is not supposed to be house-trained. Now you are ruled by lies dressed as virtues. Your rich men say innovation when they mean addiction. Your politicians say security when they mean obedience. Your companies say community when they mean data harvest. Your priests of progress say the future when they mean their stock options. You swallow these words like wine and then wonder why your head hurts. Your excellent adventure dragged me forward and showed me your age. Tech lords who treat reality as their toy, platforms that feed your vanity like a slot machine, endless content made by machines pretending to be people. I saw men who think because they can simulate a face, they understand a soul. I saw boys who treat the whole earth as a sandbox for their cleverness and then act surprised when the sand starts to choke you. You think your world is different from mine because your walls glow and your coins are numbers on a server farm. It is not. It is the same game, played with better toys, men chasing power and pleasure and calling that meaning. Men terrified of being nobody, so they pile up somethings until they cannot move. You fear your billionaires, your bosses, your mobs of strangers, but your deepest fear is to look at your own life and say, this is mostly costume, this is mostly cowardice, this is mostly habit. You do not need to live in a barrel to be like me. I was your nightmare. I am not asking you to copy my madness. I am asking you to borrow my clarity. Here is what it means to be a little more cynic in your time. First, strip down your needs. Count them on your fingers. How much of what you chase is survival? And how much is theater? How much debt did you take on to impress people you do not respect? How many hours do you trade to afford a lifestyle that never gave you the joy it promised? I owned almost nothing so that no one could threaten me by taking it away. You may not be able to throw everything out. You have families, obligations, systems built to punish the poor and reward the already full, but you can start small. One subscription, one purchase, one status symbol you simply refuse. Freedom begins with no. Second, practice shameless honesty, not cruelty, honesty. I insulted people, but always to expose a falsehood. When a banquet host boasted about his expensive dishes, I spat on him, because where else should one spit in a rich man's house but on the thing he values most? If I lived now, I'd spit on your vanity metrics and curated brands. Stop lying with your silence. When your boss sells exploitation as family, say, this is not a family, this is a contract. When a politician calls revenge justice, say, no, that is cruelty with a lawyer. When a friend asks how you are and you are drowning, tell them the truth. The more lies you accept, the more lies will be required to keep this world standing. Third, stop worshipping power and wealth. In my day, men fawned over generals and orators. I mocked them. I told Alexander he was no different from the stable boy in the only way that matters. Both will die. I walked on Plato's carpets and said, I trample on Plato's vanity. You treat your rich men like prophets because they built machines and markets. You quote their little sayings about hustle and disruption as if they were scripture. You nod when they tell you that everything beautiful and true must bow before the market. You are like peasants applauding your own landlord. You want to be like me? The next time a man worth more than a small country tells you that suffering is necessary for innovation, imagine me looking him in the eye and saying, move, you are blocking the sun. Fourth, live your philosophy instead of posting it. I urinated on the norms of my city, sometimes literally. I begged in public. I ate in the marketplace. I embarrassed everyone because my life made their compromises obvious. They believed in virtue. I forced them to see their cowardice. You, on the other hand, believe in everything with your thumbs. You support justice by sharing a link. You value mental health while working yourself into illness. You care about truth while rewarding the loudest liar with your attention. Take one belief you claim to hold and change something you do each day to match it. Just one. If you say you care about honesty, stop flattering people you secretly despise. If you say you care about freedom, stop handing it to demagogues because they make you feel safe. If you say you care about thinking, carve out 1 hour when you are unreachable and sit alone with your own mind without a glowing god in your hand. Now I will admit something. I was excessive. I lived like a stray and barked at everyone. I did things that would get you arrested, and rightly so. You cannot simply drag a barrel into your office and call it philosophy. You have people who need you. You have systems with levers and teeth. But extremity had a purpose. My life was a mirror built to insult people into waking up. Your world needs that insult. You have become too comfortable with your cages. You decorate them, you rate them with stars, you call them career paths and personal brands. You need at least a little of my rudeness to remember that you are alive, not just employed. You built an age of appearances. Appearances of wealth, appearances of happiness, appearances of truth. Your adventure team dragged me here to tear the curtain and snarl at the puppeteers. But here is the joke. The biggest puppeteer is not the billionaire or the politician. It is the part of you that would rather be comfortable than honest. I was a man who traded comfort for truth, reputation for freedom, and politeness for honesty. You cannot copy my life, and you should not. But you can bend your life 1 inch in my direction. Own one less thing that owns you. Tell one more dangerous truth that costs you something small, a little status, a little convenience. Refuse one flattering lie, even when it comes from your side, your tribe, your hero. Laugh openly at the people who try to buy your dignity with toys and titles. And when someone powerful stands before you, whether it is a boss, a politician, or a glowing screen, and says, "You need me," ask yourself, could you tell them to step out of your sun? If not, begin the work of needing them less. I did not come back to be a meme. I came back because your age is choking on the same sickness that poisoned mine, the worship of false value. You have better tools, bigger empires, more elaborate illusions. That only means your fall will hurt more if you refuse to wake. If you wish to learn from a mad dog rather than become one, then keep listening to these old ghosts. They brought Mark Twain to explain your con, Billy the Kid to warn you about your guns, and now me to bite at your ankles until you stop mistaking your chains for jewelry. And finally, if you want more dead philosophers dragging your age into the light, do the little ritual of this century. Subscribe to this most excellent adventure. Offer your thumbs-up tribute and let their cursed algorithm know you prefer uncomfortable truth to comfortable lies. I am Diogenes. Stand out of your own sun, and perhaps we will meet again.